way. The city of Nijmegen sits right, the next slide will show it better. There's the city of Nijmegen on the bottom. The river channel goes from 1,500 or a mile, 1,500 meters or a mile wide to about 400 meters or quarter mile wide. Major flood risk caused by this, because when the snow melts in Germany, it comes down through here. Nijmegen is a city of 300,000 people. What do you do with it? The easiest option was the one on number 1 above, that's creating a bypass. Just create a bypass and go around it. The city, however, got involved and said, wait a minute, we have some other ideas. We would like to use the opportunity to create a different living environment, a different engagement with the river. So what they did, you can see this sort of the diagrammatic progression here. They set back the dike along the river, creating a new channel for the water to flow into, an island in the middle of the channel that can be developed, new infrastructure to make it more accessible, and moving forward, it looks like this. So now you have a flood control project that is now being promoted by the local government because now you have more waterfront space. So tax revenues go up, safety is guaranteed because you make the areas on this island flood-proof. Above is the actual situation, below is the design situation. The project is underway, they're about. They've dug the channel, they've started to put some of the infrastructure in. There's another look at it, and here is the 15-year process. These things take time in the Netherlands. Resistance, scariness, you gotta move, got a flood risk, acquiescence. There's a decision made by the government that this project will go forward, but the community needs to tell them what they want to do with it. And that's when the city government got involved, and they said, we need to take the negative to the positive. And they did it. Rotterdam, in the western part of the country, gets more rain from above, more groundwater from below, more river discharge from Germany, and more coastal storm surge from the North Sea. It is not scaring them. They are taking the opportunity of the movement of the port closer to the water. The old harbor was in the center part of the city. It has moved because of the bigger ships. It's moved 30 miles to the west, actually out in the North Sea, hollowing out of the urban core. Climate change gave the city managers an opportunity to redevelop this area in a climate resilient way. And they're doing that. So you see this little skate park idea. This project is under construction, almost completed. It is designed as a skate park, a play area, and it will fill up with water by design whenever a 1 in 10-year storm comes along. Here is the single canal in the center of Rotterdam. Very high value property on each side of this canal. The top right shows you the dry condition. It's a linear park. People play in it. People do it. And 4 or 5 times a year, it looks like it does on the bottom. And the architect of that bridge did that on purpose. That isn't an accident. He wanted to convey to people that during watery situations or flood situations, you have risk. And that's to show that. Here's a situation. This is the top, or the graphic is a design. In fact, what this is, a major redevelopment of an urban area not too far from the Rhine River. Hospital, museums around this area created a parking garage. The city mandated that they store the water from all that new infrastructure, new investment, in the garage during a 1 in 10-year storm. So the garage in a public-private partnership has a chamber in it that fills up with the storm water. When the emergency passes, they pump the water out to the river. So multifunctional infrastructure. This project was paid for primarily by the owner, operator of the garage, not the city. So pretty cool things. It works. I know the city engineer who managed this project, and when they had the first major storm after it was completed, he said he was terrified to push the button because he didn't know if it was going to work. It worked, so it's good. Here's another very typical situation. This is an urban office park going in, watery conditions, but it's going to fill up with water during storms. Here's a pretty cool project. I told you once every 6 years the Netherlands has to manage they have to assess their flood risk. The coast, this is Scheveningen, it's hard for people to say, was below the mandated protection level. They decided they needed to redesign the area but not interrupt the commerce in this major beach access. So they had a couple designers come in, a couple architects come in, and they redesigned this dike. There's a strong new dike under that town. You can see it here on the top column in the middle. Dike covered by sand. The sand now has The beach is also widened, and they've made this very robust investment in infrastructure, and they've done it in a way that's beautiful. So now they've taken the old seawall and the old sand dune, and they've made it beautiful. So now this area attracts even more people on Sunday afternoons than before, so more tax revenue pays for itself. Very cool project that's completed. This redesign doubled the price, but they know they're going to get their money back in 3 or 4 years because of all the economic activity driven by it. Again, it's very well used. Here's another thing, public-private partnership. Beach town needed more parking. Everyone was parking in the cities because the city was right close to the beach. The city managers didn't like all that parking in the city, so they are going to have a public-private partnership. They're going to build a parking garage that's going to serve as a revetment in the dune, so you strengthen your dune system, strengthen your coastal protection system, and also you can charge people to park because now they park in the garage and they go to the beach. They don't have to walk through the town. So you alleviate some congestion, you alleviate some annoyance from tourists coming into the city, and also you create this new sort of protection system. And here's one project I want to talk about briefly. It's called the Sand Motor. This is building with nature. This is eco-dynamic design. Sea level rise is going to challenge the Netherlands, as I said, too. There's a lot of research going on in Louisiana, in Vietnam, and other places along, in the world to look at ways to capture the eco-dynamic processes that Mother Nature gives us to increase production or increase amenity. And this is a really cool project. It's called the Sand Engine. Sorry, double slide here. Here you can see in the bottom left what's been going on. The Dutch coast has been retreating over the last 300 years. You can see in the faded area of Egmond on Zee, that yellow thing in the middle is the old church. So now the foundation is underwater because the coastline has retreated. In 1996, the Dutch government mandated that the coastline could no longer retreat. It had to be held in place. How do you do that? With sand supplements. However, in 1990, it would take 6 million cubic meters of sand every year to maintain that. It's not an inconsequential amount. But they're looking in 2000, it doubled. And they were looking at a quadrupling or a 10-fold increase of that sand. You can't do that. It's just too costly. So what they decided to do is, with the private sector and with research organizations, is create something called the Sand Motor, a major pile of sand out in the middle of the North Sea, right along the Dutch coast, by design, and then let nature move the sand around. So as opposed to putting 6 million cubic meters of sand on every year, you put 21 million cubic meters of sand on in a 2-month period, and hopefully over 10 or 12 years, the currents are going to distribute that sand. Major cost savings because the dredgers only have to be engaged for 2 months, not for 1 month a year. Major cost savings. And it's going to do a lot of different things. And also create some protection as well as nature and recreation. These are the designs. You can see its deformation over 20 years. Peninsula was constructed in November of 2011. It's August 2011. Here you see the final product, and now you'll start to see the deformation. This is over the last year. You can see it slowly, 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 and you'll watch this thing. This was the model that designed it, or that they used to predict it. Very interesting part or thing about this project is the deformation is going exactly as designed. It is saving a whole lot of money. The protection level has gone up. People have been using this space because this big pile of sand has created more windsurfing opportunity, and more people were going to this area, more birding. So there's an economic model here too. This is a research program, but they're learning some things that are very important. And this kind of a project is very crucial for places along the U.S. East Coast. And I'm going to end up with the issue of the Delta Commission. In 1953, after the last major flood in the Netherlands, they implemented something called the first Delta Commission. And it designed the 40-year project, the Delta Works that I showed you. Katrina scared the Netherlands, as I said. They instituted a second Delta Commission. Did a major study. This is a panel of experts, highly respected. There they are on the left, all different segments of society. And they basically came up with a plan and said, you know, you really do need to prepare for the future, not 20 years, but 100 years and 200 years. And they've designated the areas, different types of projects need to move forward. And what they said is important. And this is a translation right from the report. So the threat isn't acute, it's important. But you need to start working on this very quickly. And you have two challenges, not only a flood risk problem, but a freshwater supply problem in the Netherlands. So you have to deal with this. And the commission, the second Delta Commission yielded a report. They recommended the appointment of a Delta Commissioner. This is sort of like God in the Netherlands. He is an independent guy. He can do whatever he wants to do. He has a small staff of 20, and he can talk to whatever minister, he can talk to the press, and if he doesn't think that the government's taking him seriously, he'll go and talk to the press. Everyone in the Netherlands is sensitive to flood risk. So if he says something, it scares people, and the government acts. Between 2011 and 2014, they're sort of studying, okay, what kind of projects might we need to implement over the next 20 to 30 years to get us to safety by 2050 and not do things that are going to be maladaptations by 2100. So he's looking for that. Next year, September, he's going to produce his Delta decisions, and those are going to be the projects or the ideas behind it, or the conceptual ideas of how to deal with these various risks. In 2015, his staff, between 2015 and 2020, very methodical process in the Netherlands. They're going to develop the specific projects to deal with the risks that they're identifying and that they're going to try to solve, that they talk about next year. And in the law establishing the Delta Commission, was adopted in 2009, they've already started to reserve 1 billion euros a year for construction and implementation of those projects beginning in 2020. So this is a 30-year program of investment between 2020 and 2050 to deal with some of these things. And they use a number of things that Cynthia talked about this morning, tipping points, and I'll just skip this stuff. And I'm just about out of time. And that's the Netherlands. They take this very seriously. Water management is in their blood. One of the things that's important to understand that sea level rise presents not just threats, but opportunities. We could wish sea level rise and climate change away. That's probably not going to help anyone. So what the Dutch have done is they are using their little country as a test bed for ideas, test bed for adaptation. Some of these projects I showed you can be replicated elsewhere. And they know that Vietnam and Southeast Asia, Africa, Central America, United States, there's going to be flood risk there too. And there's a business model here. That by developing these technologies in the Netherlands, they can help other countries deal with their own flood risk. And this is sort of a mercenary approach to looking at sea level rise. But in fact, it's the way things get done. The private sector has a crucial role in developing the technology that saves people's lives and creates some profit in turn, which creates some revenue for the government, which we all need to build projects. So there's a nice virtuous circle that can occur here, and the Dutch see this, and so they support it. One of the things, so some of the things we're doing here, we've done a lot of work in Louisiana. Some of the projects we've done, this is a conceptual design. We just released this in September. Conceptual design for Louisiana, we see a very different landscape, a watery, greener landscape in Louisiana than what you have now. It is a wet city. It is a city that has a major flood risk, but it is very dry right now, and we see it differently. Bill's coming up, so I'll stop. Good. And yeah, so quite simply, we have a mandate. I'll here on behalf of the Dutch to say the Dutch model is an important one for Americans to follow. The flood risk in the Netherlands is very prevalent. They take it seriously. They make the investments. And I think they show a way forward for certainly East Coast cities. You're going to hear from Norfolk pretty soon. Sandy impacted New York and New Jersey. When your next nor'easter comes along here, what's going to happen here? Miami Beach, we know, is in very deep trouble. So the collaboration aspects between the Dutch and the Americans on these